manhunt continues for an escaped mental patient from St. Paul's Psychiatric Hospital.
Hold on. I think some dear animal ran into my truck.
We are talking about the movie Made Me Do It. This one is coming out on April 23rd, 2019 by Indican Pictures. And this one is directed and co-written by Benjamin Ironside Koppin. Now, the title Made Me Do It refers to a legal defence where there is a kind of insanity defence where, you know, someone may have been convicted of a murder and they use the term something made me do it, the demons made me do it, the angels made me do it. And that's ultimately what we have here. We have a slasher movie where we have an antagonist who is a masked serial killer slasher, but the idea being that he wears this kind of mask that ultimately in his mind talks to him and drives him to commit murderous acts. So that's your elevator pitch here. I would actually kind of describe this one as Split meets Halloween. Now, I say Split because it has a kind of a multiple personality kind of component to it, and Halloween because it's kind of a, you know, a stoic slasher type without that in mind. So what's the story about? So it focuses on two siblings, this teenage brother and sister, whose parents are going through a divorce, and they're kind of, you know, at odds with the parents somewhat. And they're kind of looking after this particular house, and the sister has kind of moved away from college and she's now back. And then she's back, the kind of like this old kind of boyfriend starts sniffing around. However, there seems to have been some type of escape from a mental institution nearby by this this character called Thomas. Now he is a mentally handicapped boy who was abused by his aunt, and therefore is kind of obviously has some kind of issues. And what he does is he's made this kind of like paper mask that when he wears it ultimately turns him into a like a killer. It's seemingly with almost supernatural overtones. So, you know, he's escaped and he's killing a swathe through the local populace and ultimately ends up at the house of this brother and sister. And what will happen? Well, you'll have to watch the movie to find out, because that's as far as we're going. So this movie was made to be a kind of a loving retro look at the kind of the slashers of the kind of the 80s era, and it's like almost a throwback movie. It is actually set in contemporary times, but it's obviously, you know, wears its kind of influences on its sleeve and is happy to do so. So what works first of all? Well, first of all, I thought the score was fantastic. So the first thing I noticed with this film is the actual score was great. It really kind of gave you a kind of a sense of danger in all the right kind of the moments. I thought the score was fantastic. I've got to say, I thought the acting was for the most part all very good. Our central female protagonist, played by Anna Shaffer, was fantastic. Makes for a very kind of likeable kind of central protagonist who is kind of both relatable but strong, but doesn't kind of like feel like a kind of tokenism at any point either. So I thought she was absolutely fantastic. And pretty much the majority of the cast here all do a good job. The only problem I had with the acting was that the younger brother is for the most part good. There's just one area where he gets kind of angry, where I felt his acting was let down a bit. But for the rest of his performance, I thought it was all good. There are some quite gory effects here. Now, apparently 90% of the effects here are practical. You do see a little bit of kind of CGI blood, but for the most part it's all very practical and looks very, very good, and very kind of visceral and violent as well. And I feel the main strength of this film, however, is in the message that it gets across that this guy is mentally disturbed. And I feel it sells that, and we'll come on to this again in a second, but I feel you really understand the kind of the mental state of this Thomas character, that's kind of our antagonist, and you can kind of the way the kind of the camera uses some kind of visual kind of effects and stuff like that, and audio effects to kind of really give you an idea of this kind of this jarring war that's kind of going on in his head, and the idea obviously he ultimately has this kind of extra personality when he kind of puts on this kind of this mask, this kind of like this token almost, which kind of brings him out, and you take that off, and he kind of reverts back to his more, regular kind of sort of personality. But I thought the the actual kind of the scenes here of him really kind of having this dichotomy between these kind of warring sort of personalities, I thought was quite well realised. But that will circle me back to the negatives, because I feel that the effect that they've used here, they've used kind of VHS footage, actually shot on a VHS camera apparently, to show his kind of his lead up to this point, his kind of origin, his abuse, how at the hands of his kind of aunt and stuff like that, and also kind of to illustrate his kind of the war inside his head. I feel it is overdone a little bit, and actually becomes a little bit nauseating to the point where it's going to give you a headache, because it's these kind of screeching kind of sound effects, kind of flashing images, and they just maybe overdo it a little bit. I think they didn't need to kind of. I mean, we get it. I get it. He's kind of he's a messed up person, and he has this kind of like this backstory. We spend way too long in these kind of flashbacks, and there's too many of them, if you ask me. He got the message, and it almost feels to me like this movie needed to pad out its running time, because obviously the ultimate story isn't particularly kind of deep or anything, and it needs to kind of run out the running time a little bit, so it has these kind of like plentiful kind of flashbacks and kind of flashes and stuff like that to just pad it out. So I found that irritating in that respect, but also when we're actually watching it, it's like, okay, I got it, and it actually is a little bit kind of difficult to watch, because it's very kind of, if you've got like epilepsy, you're going to have a problem with this one, let me put it like that. And just visually it's kind of a little grating after a while. Now there is a twist at the end of the movie which I did not think made any sense. Now it's kind of very subtly hinted at that there may be a supernatural element to this. It might not just be a kind of a case of split personality, and to me, I don't know, that didn't work for me in a way. And then when whatever way you kind of slice it, when you see the film as a whole, it doesn't make sense if you think about it. But I can't go into spoilers, but what they show you on screen doesn't make any sense in the realm that this movie is set out, in the kind of the information that you have that is illogical and doesn't make sense. There's also a post-credit scene which I feel was unneeded, because it just illustrates the final shot of the movie's point again. So it was kind of like, yeah, okay, I get it. So I feel the movie somewhat tries to spoon feed its audience a little bit. Like I said, I thought the acting was all good. With just one scene from the brother where I felt his acting was just let down a little bit, but that's, for the most part, he was absolutely fine. But overall, I feel if you're a slasher fan, there's enough here to keep you engaged. I feel it does a good job of really selling you the fact that this guy has severe mental issues, and kind of, it does make you feel, empathy for him as well at certain points. There are a couple of character choices here that I don't know, I wasn't quite buying. We have a kind of a decision made by our female character, and this is obviously something in the script that I don't know if I was 100% buying, and there was maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity where she gives him something at the end which could have been used to maybe introduce another personality, so to speak, or something like that. I thought that could have been done with, something else could have been done with it, but that's a minor point. Overall though, I feel it's a solid slasher movie. There's enough here for any slasher film fan to kind of get enough from it to watch and enjoy it. I thought the performances are good, the gore is good, the violence is right, and it kind of gives you a good, a good mix of psychological and visceral kind of terrors as well. So I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.